We have quite a bit to cover today, so for the Ally, I have an update for the Hall Effect joystick mod that I was working on. We also have a website to buy spare parts, and an official statement from ASUS on some of the issues. We've got more information on the OneXFly from OneXPlayer, a new 7840U device from AYANEO. We also get our first look at the Win Mini from GPD. The last A1 Pros are now ready to ship. There's also a massive sale on Steam that includes the Steam Deck and some of its accessories. Welcome back, everyone, to another OKestWeekly recap where we cover all things handheld PC gaming. All news or no news, we'll cover every brand. And don't forget, if you enjoy this video, do the OKest thing and boop that like button. And if you're enjoying the channel, subscribe below. Alright, let's jump into it. I have a few updates for the ROG Ally that we're going to go over today. So we're going to go over the Hall Effect joystick upgrade that I've been working on. I'll give you guys an update on where that's at. I also received a few updates from a community member in the Okest Gamer server. His name's Technome. He found a site where we're able to buy spare parts for the ROG Ally, so I will link that in the video description. He's also been working on putting a larger battery in the Ally, so check that out. He's got that in the OKest Gamer Discord, as well as I believe the ROG Ally modifications channel. And we'll also go over an update from ASUS on some of the issues that people have been identifying with the Ally and what their response is currently. First up, I'll give you guys an update on the Hall Effect joystick mod that I did. So for those that hadn't seen it, I had put out a video where I installed some Hall Effect joysticks in my Ally and was able to get them working. However, I was experiencing some interference on the left joystick that when I pushed the left trigger, it was showing a left input on my left joystick. And I kind of left you guys on a cliffhanger that, you could adjust the dead zone and that would fix it, but I was going to look into some more options. So I spent a lot of time testing and playing with it, and I did actually find a way to get rid of the interference on the joystick. I'll be going a little bit more in depth in a second video for the Hall Effect, kind of a part 2 or a bit more of a complete guide with the full fix. So I'll briefly tell you how I did it today, and then we'll go more in depth in the other video as this is a little bit outside the scope of this video. So the short version is that I took a small magnet from an Xbox Elite D-pad and I placed it alongside the Hall Effect joystick to basically counteract the magnetic interference that I was getting. So I actually have 0 dead zone now and I have no interference from the trigger input. But there is one small catch that's very easily remedied, and that is that the interference is no longer on the joystick, but there is a little bit of interference on the trigger itself. Thankfully, this is something that's very easily remedied. All I had to do is adjust the trigger sensitivity a little bit higher, and now it works completely normal, as well as the left joystick. So I have a completely working Hall Effect joystick Ally. I'll be finishing that up this week. I had an issue with my Ally where I had to exchange it, but I'll go into that in a little bit. So that's why that video is a little bit delayed. Moving on to the next update. So that store that I was talking about where you can go online and you can order spare parts for the Ally, it seems like you can get most parts, even some of the ribbon cables and smaller things that you wouldn't really expect to find. So I'll leave a link in the video description. Feel free to check it out. I'm not going to go super in depth today. I just wanted to mention that we came across this and it's pretty cool to see that we can order some parts if you need them. Right now you probably don't because of the warranty window, but still good to know that that option is there. On to the next piece of news. It's actually another one that Technome had brought forward. This one's actually for that laptop battery that they installed into an ROG Ally. So he had actually done this and documented the process. So with some mad science, he took a 90 watt-hour battery and got it working inside his Ally. So originally the battery is much too long, so what they ended up doing was actually folding the battery over, essentially taking care of the issue of it being too long and now just making it to be a thicker battery. So I think their next step is going to be modifying the back shells so that the battery can fit in properly. So if you're curious about this or just find it interesting, feel free to hop in the Discord and talk to Technome. He's the one that's working on this project. And if nothing else, it's just interesting to see someone trying out a mod on their Ally. And on to the last bit of news is actually an update that we got from ASUS in response to some of the concerns that have come forward with the Ally, whether it's hardware or software. The first one being the performance difference between BIOS 317 and 319. It seems that with the AMD drivers, they're saying that the performance issues that people were noting should be taken care of and it should be fine to update. They reference one benchmark for Cyberpunk 2077 that shows that the BIOS 319 is slightly outperforming the 317. I haven't really had a chance to test this out myself, so I couldn't really speak to how this is performing now. I've been busy working on some other issues with my device, which I'll get to shortly. The next issue they briefly touched on is the joystick dead zones. So this is something that a lot of people have been talking about, that some games are just not getting the movement detected until far into the press of the joystick. So the update is basically that they are aware of this and that it's a complex issue because there's different layers. There's Armory Crate, there's the games, there's the joystick themselves. So they're taking a look at how they can tune this better and address this for the community. No real updates yet, but we should hear something soon. And finally, the hot topic issue quite literally is the SD card reader situation. So I mentioned that I had some device issues, and that's actually what my device had an issue with, is my SD card reader just stopped working. I had reported on the issue last week, and I guess I cursed my device because the next day my SD card reader stopped working. So right now, ASUS is aware of the issue and they have not been able to replicate it in their testing. They should be able to hopefully get some soon, as I'm sure many returns are going to be coming back with this issue and they should be able to see what's going on here. But right now the recommendations is that you can set a custom fan curve and set it to be more aggressive where the fan turns on a little bit higher, just to make sure that temps aren't an issue, as some suspect that the SD card readers are just getting overheated. Secondly, they're going to be putting out a hotfix update so that the fan curve is naturally just more aggressive across the profiles. And finally, if you are experiencing this issue, what their official recommendation is that you visit a couple websites that they posted and you can RMA your device, or if you're still within your return window, that you can return or exchange the device for a new one. As right now, because they haven't been able to replicate it, we don't know what the fix is. So if you're having this issue and you're still in your return window, honestly, bring it back, get a new one. It's what I did. Thankfully, Best Buy was awesome and they were able to take back my device, even though it was a day or two past my return window. However, that decision is store by store basis, so hopefully that works out for you guys. And lastly, the last two issues that they are aware of and are trying to figure out what's going on is the audio cracking. I've had that issue as well, particularly in Persona 5. As well as the issue with the USB-C hub and docks where they can't do the turbo mode, the 30 watt in particular, when you're plugged in. I've tested this across numerous docks. I actually have some videos coming up where I'm reviewing a few docks. And for some reason, the issue is across the board. It doesn't matter what dock I use. The docks I've tested are capable of 100 watt power delivery, but for some reason it's not working with the Ally, so it seems to be a software issue that they're going to have to figure out what's going on and be able to address it. So that's going to do it for my ROG Ally updates. Stay tuned for the Hall Effect Joystick Part 2. And be sure to check out the next section for the Steam Deck, because there's a number of sales, not just for the Steam Deck itself, but also for some games that you may want to check out. This week for the Steam Deck, it's all about the summer sale. So there's a number of games on sale, but there's also sales on the Steam Deck and some of the other hardware. So right now you can get the Steam Deck for 10% off for the 64GB model, 15% off for the 256, or 20% off for the 512. So if you're in the market for a Steam Deck, now is probably the best time to pick one up. You can also get the Steam Deck docking station for 20% off, and they put together a list of the top 100 games played on the Steam Deck, and this ranges anywhere from some that aren't on sale, which is very few, but I've seen it anywhere from 20% up to about 84% off, and a number of the games are actually the cheapest I've ever seen them. So looking at the Halo Master Chief Collection, I've never actually seen it go for $12.49 Canadian or to be 75% off. So definitely check it out if you're interested, and if you're looking for a Steam Deck, now is a great time to buy. And that's going to wrap it up for the Steam Deck. Let's move on to AOKZOE. A bit of a slower week for AOKZOE, so I just have one update for you guys. The A1 Pro 64GB model is now getting ready to be shipped out. I had previously reported that it was delayed, and now it seems that they've created the shipping labels and it should be going out soon to the backers. I'm looking forward to the A1 Pro campaign ending so that they can move on to the A2, not at all for selfish reasons because I want that one. But as of right now, I don't have any more updates for the A2, but I will keep you guys up to speed once I learn more. And that's all I got for AOKZOE, so let's move on to OneXPlayer. For OneXPlayer this week, we got updates mostly relating to the Onexfly. So we found out that the campaign is going to be happening sometime in the second half of July. We learned this when one of the staff had replied to a question on where they could purchase the device, and they said that the campaign would be going live sometime in the second half of July. And then they dropped the link for the Indiegogo, which I will also drop for you in the video description. Aside from that, there was also a launch event in Japan where we got to see a little bit more hands-on with the device and even get to see it compared with some other devices. namely the OneXPlayer Mini Pro. So when you look at the two side by side, they look very similar in size. It looks like the OneXPlayer Mini Pro is slightly bigger. And taking a look at the white model of the OneXFly, it looks a little different than I think we expected. It looks like, and I'm not sure if this is just a specific model or if this is actually going to be the white model, but it looks like the buttons have a bit of a greenish tint to them, and they're also shiny. So if you look at the front face buttons, they're a little bit shiny. If you look at the D-pad, same thing. And then the top seems to have a green pair of triggers and a cover. So we'll have to wait to see if the white one has the green accents or if that was just a specific model, maybe for Japan or maybe for China. So the device should be here pretty soon, and we'll know a little bit more as time goes on. I'll keep you guys up to speed as I usually do. And hopefully I can get my hands on one of these devices to try it out sometime and maybe share my thoughts on it. So that's all I've got for the OneXPlayer updates this week. So let's move on to AYN. This week for AYN, I don't have a ton to go over, but we're still waiting for that second batch of Loki Maxes as well as the Lokis to go out. They were originally targeting the end of June, but it seems that they've missed the target and are looking at possibly next week or maybe the week after. But some good news is that issue with the joystick where it was kind of rubbing against the trigger, they seem to have resolved that. They didn't really go into details as to what the fix was, but apparently it was quite simple and it's something that they've already implemented. Aside from that, I don't really have anything to cover for AYN, so I'll keep you guys up to speed as I learn more. Let's move over to AYANEO. For AYANEO, we got more information on the SKU that they had teased last week. It sounds like they're going to be making another 7840U device, and they're going to be using the shell that they used in the AYANEO Air Pro and the AYANEO Air. Not to be confused with the AYANEO Air Plus, which in this case is a great thing because now we get an OLED screen. So the shell and design should be pretty well almost identical to the Air Pro, which I actually happen to have. And I can confirm that the screen is absolutely beautiful. It's the only OLED screen that I have for a handheld aside from my PS Vita. And it really does make a difference for the blacks and for the richness of the colors. So let's briefly go over some of the specs for the AYANEO Air 1S. For the screen, we have a 5.5-inch 1080p AM OLED screen with 185 sRGB gamut value and 96% Adobe RGB coverage. We have the Ryzen 7 7840U APU, and there's going to be 4 colors available. There's Aurora White, Polar Black, Retro Power, and B-Duct Tech Gray. For the battery, it's going to have a 38 watt-hour battery. Memory will be LPDDR5X, but they did not specify the amount. It's going to be using a 2280 size SSD. They're going to be including the master controller configuration, kind of like what they have in the Neo 2S and the Neo 2. It will have Hall sensor joysticks that are going to be the same size as a Joy-Con. We also have linear Hall effect triggers. For I/O, we have 2 USB-C ports that are both USB 4. We have a 3.5mm headphone jack, as well as a micro SD card reader. And we've also got a fingerprint scanner integrated into the power button. For connectivity, we have Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2. And of course, it's going to come with Windows 11. One thing to note is that the TDP limit on battery is going to be at 20 watt, and when you're plugged in, it'll be able to go up to 25 watts. The posts in their Discord server do go a little bit more in depth, so visit that if you'd like to see a little bit more. And lastly, as far as the launch date, I'm not actually sure yet. They haven't announced it, but I will keep you guys up to date once I hear more, so stay tuned to the channel if you want to hear those updates. Aside from that, that's all I've got for AYANEO, so let's move on to GPD. We got our first look at the Win Mini this week. There was a tester in China that uploaded some photos that give us a first look at the actual device. So if you look at it, it actually looks like a Win Max 2, just a tiny version of it. It's actually a little bit smaller than a Win 3. They took a photo with the Win Mini on a scale, and it looks like it's 510 grams, which is super light. And you can see the rear cover, there's some handles on there, so I'm wondering if it has a rear cover that can be changed out. I'm not entirely sure, but just kind of speculating on that. And we also get a chance to take a look at the I/O that's on the back of the device. So looking at the photo, it looks like we have 2 USB-C ports at the top near the vent there. We have a toggle switch. I'm guessing that's for gamepad and mouse mode. We've got a 3.5mm headphone jack, a micro SD card slot, and I believe that's an Oculink connector. So we don't have too much more information on when exactly the campaign's coming up, but I'm guessing it's coming up very soon if they're already sending it out to testers. I'll be keeping an eye on this to see when we get more information, but I'm going to guess they're probably going to give information to the Fox, so stay tuned on his channel as well. I'm sure you'll see an update come through. Moving to other devices, I don't have any further updates for the 7840U version of the Win 4. Nothing beyond what I shared last week anyway, so if you missed that one, check out last week's video and you could get the full scoop on it. I also haven't seen any updates for the GPD G1, that's their eGPU that's coming out. So they were supposed to have it coming out in June, but they did delay it till July, so I'm gonna guess we're gonna either see it this week or possibly maybe sometime next week. But you know the drill, as soon as I find out more, I'll let you guys know, so stay tuned for the weekly videos or possibly check out my community posts. I sometimes will post news updates in there as well. And that's it for my GPD news this week. And that's going to do it for today's OKest Weekly recap. I hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching.